Hello everyone, very good evening. I'm Bhuvnesh Vyas, President Law Awareness Society. Welcome you all in the webinar organized by the Law Awareness Society. Today with us we have our guest of honor and speaker Ashish Kumar Singh sir. He is an alumnus of NLSIU Bangalore. Recently in 2019 he was awarded the prestigious Pegasus Scholarship by the Honorable Society of Inner Temple, London. He co-founded Capstan Legal with Vagesh Kumar Singh, who is also alumnus of NLSIU and also a gold medalist in 2013. He has more than 12 reported cases in various fields of law, including 2 cases which have been reported by the Supreme Court of India. Capstan Legal was recently ranked by the Vantage Asia Hong Kong as one of the fastest growing law firms in India. So without wasting time, now I request sir to start the webinar.
Thank you, Bhuvnesh, for having me, and thank you, Law Awareness Society, for giving me this opportunity. Today's topic is basically related to arbitration. What is the legal regime in India? And from a practitioner standpoint, how does it work? So that would be the focus of our discussion today. And secondly, I'm going to be focusing on domestic arbitrations because, as most practitioners, this is the field that we would come across the most in our practice. At least in the 8 years that I have spent at the bar, I have seen majority of cases are related to domestic arbitrations. So to begin with, we have to see how a case progresses. So I'm going to take an example and then show you how the case progresses first, right from the appointment of the arbitrator till the enforcement of that arbitral award. So the first thing which one has to see when an arbitration case or an agreement is seen is that whether that agreement has an arbitration clause or not. Now, an arbitration agreement, in order to have a dispute resolved through arbitration, the arbitration agreement has to be in writing. It can either be an agreement in itself, that is a separate agreement, or it can be a part of an overarching agreement between the parties. So generally in commercial disputes or even disputes related to insurance and finance, you would see that an arbitration clause is inadvertently there. Not only is there an arbitration clause, the arbitration clause also prescribes what type of disputes can be referred to arbitration, and also prescribes that what type of disputes are beyond the purview of arbitration. So whenever you see an agreement, you have to analyze as to whether the dispute which your client or the party before you has come with, whether that case is arbitrable or not. For example, a criminal case cannot be arbitrated. A case of fraud cannot be arbitrated. So all those things you have to see initially. So that is the first step which you have to analyze while looking at the agreement. Secondly, for it to be enforceable, now recent Supreme Court judgments say that the agreement is supposed to have proper stamping, which has to be seen from the various state law. So those of you who are from Rajasthan would be aware that there's a certain stamp duty payable when you're entering into a contract. There's another set of stamp duty payable for other types of agreements. So you have to see that whether this agreement is adequately stamped or not. Because an agreement which is inadequately stamped would not be enforceable, that arbitration clause would not be enforceable. You would not be able to even initiate the proceedings as per recent Supreme Court decisions. Coming forward, you have to see what is the seat of arbitration. Now, the Arbitration Act of 1996 is very clear about the fact that it is basically an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So, but the definition of court as given in the Act is very clear. The definition of the court is you have to assume that there is no arbitration clause. And after that assumption, the court which would have jurisdiction is the court where you will have to initiate proceedings. So why should we initiate proceedings in court altogether? So for interim measures, what the court has said, what the Supreme Court has said, and what the judge, now the recent amendments have said is that for interim protection, you have to approach the court itself. That protection should be and can be for preservation of the material in arbitration, for security for costs and all those things. That is section 9 application. So the first thing is you analyze the agreement, you see whether it is adequately stamped or not, you see whether this agreement has all the proper elements of a contract, and then beyond that you have to see whether interim measures are required to be given in this or section 9, whether it's applicable or not. अब मैं थोड़ा सा आपको हिंदी में बताता हूँ. अब तक आई थिंक अगर किसी को अंग्रेजी में प्रॉब्लम हो तो आप चैट बॉक्स में लिख सकते हैं. इफ दैट्स ऑल राइट. ठीक है. तो सेक्शन 9 की एप्लीकेशन जो होती है वो सबसे पहले फाइल होती है उस कोर्ट में जहां ये केस फाइल किया जाता अगर ये मैटर आर्बिट्रेशन से गवर्न नहीं होता. ठीक है. तो वहां के लिए आपको ये समझना जरूरी है दैट एन आर्बिट्रेशन क्लॉज हैज टू बी एनालाइज्ड इन दैट सेंस. नंबर 2 इज दैट section 9 arbitration se pehle you have to see that if there is an arbitration clause in an agreement, then no civil court would exercise jurisdiction in terms of filing of a suit or temporary injunction or mandatory injunction. एक जनरली एक टेंडेंसी होती है कि कोई भी एग्रीमेंट हो तो अपन सिविल सूट फाइल कर देते हैं, बट स्पेसिफिकली आर्बिट्रेशन एक्ट के अंदर प्रोविजन दिया गया है जिसमें कि ये कहा है that if there is an arbitration clause and that arbitration clause is a valid arbitration clause, then no recourse can be taken to a civil court, which is very very clear. So अगर आप प्रैक्टिशनर हैं और अपने क्लाइंट को एडवाइस कर रहे हैं तो सबसे पहले आपको ये चेक पॉइंट्स देखने पड़ेंगे even before you move forward in advising. And if you're a law student, this is very important because this forms a part of majority of the judicial service examinations and other exams जो आपको देने पड़ेंगे even in your college. So section 8 is the provision which says that power to refer parties to arbitration where there is an arbitration agreement. तो अगर if you file a case before the court ये कहते हुए कि भाई मेरा arbitration clause है लेकिन मैं फिर भी civil court में आया हूँ, then court will examine that and refer you to arbitration. Section 9 provides for interim measures. Now the scope of section 9 by the recent amendment, previously what used to happen, even after arbitration proceedings have begun, people used to proceed under section 9, but now section 9 के अंदर एक provision दिया गया है जिसमें limit की गई है power court की कि अगर arbitrator के पास भी interim protection देने की power है तो court अपनी power को इस्तेमाल नहीं करेगी. So that is something which you have to see under section 9. The second thing, जब आपने अपने agreement को analyze कर लिया, you have seen how the what are the clauses etc. Then you have to see what is the mode of appointment of arbitrator that is given in the agreement. So mode of appointment of arbitrator in India, there are basically 3 mechanisms in which arbitrators can be appointed. The first mechanism is ad hoc arbitration. Ad hoc arbitration is something which is happening in maximum cases in India, which is that there is an arbitration tribunal which is constituted on an ad hoc basis, matlab on a case-to-case basis. The second mechanism is institutional arbitration. Now what has happened is all the high courts, most of the high courts and certain private players have also entered into this so-called arbitration dispute resolution market. And what they've done is they have made specific arbitration centers with specific governing rules of arbitration, and under those rules you will proceed in arbitration. So those are institutional arbitrations. Many of the agreements would prescribe that there's a recourse to an institutional arbitration, right? This is something which you have to see. The third thing is that the arbitration, when there is no consensus between the parties, then the court would appoint an arbitrator. So generally agreement के अंदर ऐसा देखा जाता है that it is given that arbitrator shall be appointed by mutual consent of the parties. But that mutual consent, when parties are fighting with each other, when they are ready to file cases against each other, that mutual consent never happens. So basically the recourse against that is that you approach the high court of that particular state, the definition of court which is given in the act itself, जो कि उसका governing law decide करेगा और जगह decide करेगा. वहां पे आप केस फाइल करेंगे. You would file an application before the said high court saying that we want an arbitrator to be appointed in this dispute. Now there's a case which I did a couple of years ago in which our case was that this dispute, there is no dispute between the parties. So आपको ये check करना पड़ेगा when you are filing this particular case कि what is the existing dispute within the parties and whether that dispute is arbitrable or not. These are the two things which you have to mention in an application, which is basically filed under Section 11, Appointment of Arbitrator, Section 11 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996. Then the court itself, that is the High Court and even the Supreme Court, previously the Supreme Court, they had a panel of arbitrators. And the panel of arbitrators was appointed as per the pecuniary importance of the matter. So for example, if a matter is of 5 crores, I'm not saying that it is the same in each and every state, but broadly speaking, it is based on the pecuniary jurisdiction. So arbitrators are appointed on the basis of that. So they would be either retired Supreme Court judges or retired Chief Justices of High Court, judges of the High Court, and district judges, depending upon how important the case is in terms of its pecuniary value. Sometimes it may be needed that the matter is of technical nature. So technical nature meaning if it's a high-end technology contract, then generally arbitrators who are technical people can also be appointed. Further, you have to see that how many arbitrators are needed to be appointed. So there can be a panel of even 3 arbitrators, sometimes even 5 arbitrators, although it happens very, very rarely. But whenever a panel is formed, there is always a president or a chairman of that panel who would be taking a decision, administrative decisions, but all the people in the arbitral tribunal are considered to be equal if the arbitration agreement does not prescribe otherwise. So there may be technical members in the panel and there would be judicial members in the panel to decide interstate disputes between the parties. Now, while appointing arbitrators, the most important recent change which has happened is the introduction of Schedule 7 and Schedule 8. Now, Schedule 7 of the Arbitration and the Conciliation Act basically provides the conditions wherein what is the disqualification for an arbitrator, for a person to be appointed as an arbitrator. What are the conditions that if that person, for example, was a legal counsel for one of the parties, for example, if that person has been retained by the other party, or if there are more than 5 arbitrations pending before him or her, then that person is deemed to be disqualified. Also, certain positive guidelines have been given in the recent 2019 amendment, where they have said that a person to be appointed as an arbitrator should have at least 10 years of practice. And similar conditions have also been given for a chartered accountant, for judges, etc., under the recent amendment. So considering all these things, an appointment of arbitrator would be done by the High Court. Generally, if I'm speaking only limited to the Rajasthan High Court, then the arbitrate, you would be asked about whom do you sort of suggest to be arbitrators, and you can give a list of arbitrators and the court would then select one of the arbitrators if all the conditions are fulfilled, and then arbitration proceedings would commence. Now, commencement of arbitration proceedings would happen when, on the basis of if it's an ad hoc arbitration and the arbitrator has been appointed by the High Court, then basically you would give a notice or you would write a letter to the arbitrator that you have been appointed in so and so case. The court would also send that message to the arbitrator, and the arbitrator would then invite both the parties or multiple parties to be present before the arbitrator for a case management hearing. Now, it is not a mandatory requirement that there has to be a case management hearing, but generally, practically speaking, a case management hearing happens on the very first date itself. Now, what does that case management hearing, what does it mean? Now, a case management hearing is basically deciding how many days would it take to resolve this dispute. Now, the maximum time limit given under the Act is 1 year. So everything has to be done within 1 year. So parties would decide what is the procedure that they will follow while resolving this dispute. With procedure, I mean that CPC per se is not applicable on the arbitration proceedings, but the procedure has to be fair, just and equitable to both the parties. So that has to be decided in the very first hearing, or at least in the first 2 hearings, that what shall be the mechanism and the procedure that the arbitral tribunal would follow. The time limit for presenting your claim, the time limit for presenting defense, your issues, all these things have to be framed in the first two hearings. And then the court would give, and then the arbitral tribunal would give certain dates where you have to be present, either for an oral hearing or for examination of witnesses. Now, in my experience, I have appeared in both type of arbitrations. The ones which involve complex cross-examination on facts and law, where it would take 5 days for a witness to get examined. There would be expert witnesses as well sometimes, and there would be court assistance required. Now, what does that mean? So I am entering into the second part of the discussion. The first part of the discussion was the mode of appointment of arbitrator. The second part of the discussion deals with, once the arbitrator has been appointed, what are the powers of the civil court in helping the arbitrator in doing its duties. Now, a power has been given to the civil court to provide all assistance to the arbitrator in examination of witnesses. Now, an arbitrator would not have all these assistance, because generally in an even in an institutional arbitration, they cannot issue summons, they cannot do that. So they will do it with the help of the concerned civil court. So you would write to the civil court, make an application, and then the all support, and it would be as if that civil court is calling that particular witness. I have seen in many cases, sometimes summons are issued and even bailable warrants are issued if the witness fails to turn up in cases. Now, this is just to ensure that witnesses are in fact present during the arbitration proceedings. Given this, that is section 27, which deals with court assistance in taking evidence. Now, all these processes shall be deemed to be processes of the civil court. The Arbitration and Conciliation Act also gives the power to an arbitrator to appoint its own expert witnesses. Now, in a recent case which I was appearing in, it deals with construction of an oxygen plant. Now, an oxygen plant is a highly technical thing. It is something which neither the advocates from the claimant side nor from the other side, nor the arbitrator would understand how an oxygen plant actually functions. So the court appointed an expert witness to testify the working of the oxygen plant, how that oxygen plant delivers its products, and what are the lacunae in the work that is. Although it is not adjudication on facts, but it is basically bringing out hyper technical facts, which is nowadays happening a lot in arbitrations, because most commercial cases are now being decided in this manner. So that is under section 26 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, that an expert appointment can be made by the arbitral tribunal. Obviously, the cost of this shall be borne equally by both the parties, unless there is something stipulated in the agreement between the parties. Now, then we move on to the next provisions, that once an arbitrator has heard the evidence from both sides, then what next? What can the arbitrator do? Now, the most powerful, the power that the arbitrator has been given is to give interim awards. Now, that interim award, if you see, is under section 17 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, interim measures by an arbitral tribunal. Now, previously, prior to 2019, the power to give interim award under section 17 was till the time the arbitral award is enforced. But now that power has been curtailed, and it is only during the arbitral proceedings are in place that a section 17 application can be made. Now, a section 17 application is very similar to section 9 application, which I just discussed with you. Section 9 application is before the court for interim measures, and this application, section 17, is before the arbitrator. Now, the broad scenario, the broad conditions to be fulfilled is that this interim measure can be for preservation, interim custody of sale or goods, for securing amounts of dispute and arbitration, detention, preservation, inspection of property. So, for example, if there's a property which, for example, if it's a car, and there's a possibility that the person, the subject matter of dispute either may be sold to the third party or may not be available, then the court can appoint a receiver. The court can give further directions that you shall not move this from this so and so place. All these things under section 17 comes in the ambit of interim measures by an arbitral tribunal. Now, an interim award is akin to a final award. It is enforceable in the same manner as a final award. Now, most practitioners forget this part. It is not that we have to wait till the finality of the arbitral proceedings, you can make these applications in between also. You can get them enforced in order to protect the interests of your client. So Section 17 application is a very powerful tool which has been given to the arbitrator, and I think it's a very less used tool currently. Moving on, this after the statement of claim and defense, after recording evidence, and after court assistance in taking evidence, then the arbitral award is passed. Now, in an arbitral award, the time limit, as I mentioned previously, has been fixed at 12 months. So in 12 months, from the initiation till the end, 12 months time limit is given. Although the time limit can be extended by recourse to filing an application before the appropriate court, which in most cases is the High Court, wherein you can seek an extension of time, either 6 months or 3 months. But nowadays, what has happened, courts have become very, very strict in giving these time extensions because of the recent mandate under the 2019 Act. Now, what has happened is in 2015, Section 29B has also been introduced, which is basically a fast track procedure for arbitration. Sometimes, or which in international parlance is called emergency arbitration. Now, the fast track procedure is a very unique procedure. There is no requirement, and please note that these proceedings can only be initiated if both parties agree to a fast track procedure. Now, the fast track procedure involves, in most cases, that there shall be no oral hearing. Everything is decided on the basis of written submissions, and oral hearing is only granted by due permission from the arbitrator. So this fast track procedure is also, I have not come across a single case from 2015 onwards where a fast track procedure has been used. So this provision is a provision which is very less used, but it can be used in cases where time is the essence, and the time limit prescribed in the fast track procedure is only 6 months. But that is the upper time limit, and it is unlikely to be extended by the court because there is no provision for extension of the fast track procedure, like extension of time under the fast track procedure. So Section 29B is also something which you should see. Now, after this, once the arbitral award has been passed, then what is the recourse? What can a person do after an arbitral award is passed? Now, for setting aside an arbitral award, an application can be made under Section 34. Section 34 is an application for setting aside of an arbitral award. Now, previously, prior to 2019, the provision read that if a person furnishes proof that the proceedings were conducted wrongly, or there was some incapacity, or that they were otherwise affected, or this procedure was not fair, or that the dispute is not capable to be resolved through arbitration, or it is in conflict of public policy, all these procedures remain the same. But the change which has happened in 2019 is that the definition has been restricted to the record before the arbitrator. Previously, it was proof. So even you could travel beyond the pleadings, you could travel beyond the documents that are mentioned in the arbitral proceedings or documents that were presented before arbitral proceedings. You could furnish further proof. But after 2019, that is 1 year ago, you can only see the arbitration proceedings and then file an application under Section 34 on those grounds. So the ground of filing Section 34 application has been further limited, and it has happened consistently since 2015. Now, one of the main grounds that you have to take is in terms of, broadly speaking, not going into the specific aspects of it, is that there was some incapacity due to which you could not be present before the arbitrator, or you could not come before the arbitral tribunal, or notice what was not served properly to you. Or if you go into the merits of the matter, then it is in conflict of public policy of India, or it is in contravention of fundamental policy of Indian law, or the most basic notions of morality or justice. Now, the critique of this particular provision is that most of the times these provisions are so wide enough that anything can come under the ambit of fundamental policy of India and is in conflict of basic notions of morality or justice. So what has happened is that an explanation has been introduced, which is explanation 2, which says that the test as to whether there is a contravention with fundamental policy of Indian law shall not entail review of merits of the dispute. So it should not deal with merits of the dispute. So you cannot say that, oh no, this happened in this particular this particular witness has said so and so, that is in contravention. That is not the case. It has to be broadly worded. It has to be broadly seen from the entire manner in which arbitration proceedings have been conducted. So it is not basically, it is not an appeal against an arbitral award. That is what the Supreme Court has said in many of its recent decisions. The second condition which you have to see is that this application under section 34, which is for setting aside of an arbitral award, has to be filed within 3 months of the passing and communication of the award, and the time period further of 1 month is given, that is 30 days time period is given. So maximum of 4 months time is given when you can challenge an arbitral award. So because it is a statutory law, even if it is 4 months and 1 day, then you cannot take recourse to section 34. Then you have to go for, then that arbitral agreement, that arbitral award has to be enforced. So you have no recourse left if you do not challenge it within the stipulated time period that is prescribed under this act, which is basically 3 months, and a condonation of 1 month, that is basically 4 months. Another provision that has been recently added is that once an application, before the application is filed, you need to give a notice to the other side that you're going to file this agreement, that you're going to file this application before the appropriate court. That notice has to be a registered post, and the practitioners that are hearing this know it for a fact that this notice is very important. The court would generally not even entertain the matter if that notice is not given. Then coming to the fact that what happens if you have used all these remedies. So there are certain appealable orders also which are given in the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996. Now those appealable orders are basically orders given under section 9, which is the order for interim relief, and order under section 34. Now section 34 is the application which I just mentioned. So the first step is to challenge that application, challenge the arbitral award by filing an application under section 34. If that is dismissed, then people generally file an appeal under section 37, which is under the category of appealable orders. But there is no provision of second appeal. So this is the only and the final ground that is there. What the court has said consistently is that the scope under section 37, that is appealable order, even reduces further because one court has already examined it. So generally in Rajasthan, the application under section 34 would be filed before a commercial court, and a section 37 would be filed before the commercial division of the High Court, or in some cases even 34 directly can lie. So this is the mechanism to set aside an arbitral award once it is passed without following the due process of law. Once all this has happened, then how do you enforce an arbitral award is something which is very important. Now, the enforcement proceedings are similar to Order 22 of the CPC. Now, Section 35 says that the arbitral award is final and binding, and it is as if it has been passed by a civil court. And Section 36 talks about enforcement of an arbitral award. And the clause specifically says that it will be enforced in the same manner as if it was a decree of the court. Now, how is a decree basically enforced? You would see that from CPC Order 22 and other orders which deal with enforcement of a decree. Now, there's a time period prescribed when you can file for enforcement and where you have to file. Now, you have to file in the court as per the CPC. The definition of the court given in the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, there you can file in the court where the Arbitration and Conciliation Act provides for it, and then you can seek a transfer in the place where you want that decree to be finally enforced. Now, it also provides that merely filing an application of Section 34, which is a challenge, does not mean that the enforcement is stayed. Now, there has to be a specific application under Section 34 seeking a stay on the enforcement of that arbitral award. So these are the checks and balances that have been built in the Arbitration and Conciliation Act for the purposes to ensure that the arbitration proceedings are faster. Now, with the recent time limit that has been prescribed for 1 year, things have become faster, and Section 9 has also become very efficacious. So all these things taken into consideration, I think India is moving in a very positive direction in ease of doing business. And Arbitration and Conciliation Act plays a very, very important role in that. And anywhere that you go, the law students that are hearing this right now and who have now joined on Facebook Live would know that if you go into any sector, if you go into the finance sector, most of the disputes are now subject to arbitration. So you need to know the basics of this law as well as the nuances of this law and the developments that have taken place. Now, due to paucity of time, I have only covered the domestic part of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. There's another part which deals with international commercial arbitration that is even more expansive, but less used for practitioners like me. Therefore, I am not an expert in that area. But certainly, this domestic part is something which all of us should be aware about. Now, now Bhuvnesh, I am done. Now we can have some questions.
So if anyone want to ask question, they can write in chat box, or I can unmute it.
Yeah, please.
Raise hand. You just write your names in chat box so that I can unmute you. Akshat Bhatnagar.
Yeah.
Yes, Akshat, you can ask.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ashish sir.
Good evening.
I have a question regarding arbitration, as in from the point of view of contracts. There are situations in which arbitrations might not be as useful to corporates. So, is there an advice or tip you would want to give me regarding how to utilize the arbitration section or arbitration provision from a company's point of view into the contracts?
See, to my knowledge, compared to a civil litigation, arbitration is cheaper, it is faster, and it is more fair. So from that standpoint, obviously, I would suggest that all commercial agreements should have an arbitration clause. But the question that you've asked is that sometimes it may not be useful. Now, those considerations, to my knowledge, it will be very unfair on the other party. So whenever you see that there is a disparity between the purchasing power of both the parties or the negotiation power of both the parties, then you would not find an arbitration clause. Because then one party would want the other to be in the civil court, spend 10 years of time, all those things. So that is why I think it is more fair than civil court. That's what my understanding is.
Thank you, Ashish. That was helpful.
Ashish, a question I have is that, as far as enforcement of arbitral award in India, that we know there is a layer of, appellate authorities over the adjudicating arbitrator. Yeah. So looking to that in comparison to the Western countries where they have a very solidified code for arbitration, how far we have still to go to achieve that very goal where we can, effectively implement the arbitration code in India?
See, I think the law that we have in India is based on the UNCITRAL model law of international commercial arbitration of 1985. What has happened is that there has been subsequent developments in the law. For example, I recently spent some time overseas working with some of these, courts in England and Wales. They do not have these appeal procedures, and the appeal procedures are time bound. So everything has to be decided within the time bound manner. That sadly has not happened in enforcement in India. So the Arbitration Act, although prescribes a certain time frame, but when you move from an Arbitration Conciliation Act to CPC and provisions of enforcement, the same thing happens. So I think there is a requirement of a legislative change in order to bring enforcement of an arbitral award in the ambit of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. I think that's one of the mechanisms that can be adopted.
Okay. So,
yeah.
So many people are asking questions.
Yeah. So, what do you want me to, yeah.
Karthik, I have unmuted you.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding that. What about the binding procedure in the arbitration? Like, I think this is a serious drawback in the arbitration, that there is no binding scenario, binding contract between the parties and binding a result of the arbitration proceeding.
I'm
Like
sorry, I could not
if
hear your
if
question properly. Could you kindly repeat?
what about the binding scenario of in the arbitration proceeding? Like if the result is declaration by the arbitrator, there is no binding. It is not binding on the parties to accept that, and they can approach to the court if they found anything
No,
discrepancy in the order of the arbitration.
actually, you're right. Section 35 clearly says that arbitral award shall be final and binding on the parties. But I think what you're trying to say is that even if an arbitral award is passed, you can take a recourse to Section 34 by challenging that award. Then you can file an appeal under Section 37. And I think what
Yeah.
you're trying to get at is that even after the arbitrator passes an award, does not become final. And there are certain appellate stages, as Aniket has rightly pointed out. So I think you're trying to say that that is creating a problem in arbitration, if I'm
Yes,
understanding
yes.
it correctly.
Yeah, true, sir.
So I think you are absolutely right. The reasons for keeping this is to ensure that there is no trap. I think the second procedure under Section 37 can be done away with, where there's an appeal against a Section 34 application. If that happens, then there is at least one layer of safety, and that is something for the legislature to think about. But I'm not sure if we are moving in that direction yet. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Hi, sir. This is Ankur Tharwan, sir. I'm a law second year student. My question is basically, I just want to know, after the Amendment Act of 2019, Arbitration Act, how you will define it, that how much it will evolve this act to a more better content or construct, basically.
See, I think the thrust of 2019 amendment is on international commercial arbitration.
Exactly.
And what they have done is that the international commercial arbitration part has been strengthened by the introduction of certain new authorities like the Arbitration Council of India. And basically, what they want to do is that they want to strengthen the institutional arbitration. So till the time we have ad hoc arbitrations, these procedural things get in the way. But when you have a shift towards institutional arbitration, where things are pretty much fixed and procedures are pretty much fair, then things become easier, and the recourse to Section 34 and 37 would be much less. I think that's the thrust of the 2019 amendment.
But this amendment is basically having more for the international arbitration regime and less for the domestic arbitration regime.
You're absolutely right.
I feel that there should be something more has to be done on the domestic level also, sir. There should be more amendments.
You're absolutely. I think the vein is, it is easier to get it done in the international commercial arbitration because there are less number of cases. So I think it is a test case for the legislature to see that first they have introduced the Arbitration Council for India, then they would slowly move on to the international commercial arbitration and then into the domestic area. I think we are moving in that direction. Maybe in a couple of years, till the time you graduate or become a practitioner, we'll see a change.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much.
Rudrakshin Bhati from. I have unmuted you.
Sir,
Yes, Rudraksh.
it's a pleasure to learn from you again. So, keeping in mind, I had also worked on drafting a couple of petitions under your guidance. Prior to coming to this session, I had researched upon that many arbitration awards are challenged in the high courts, which further delays upon the process of ensuring justice and delays the process. So any stipulated work or a direction to which we can adopt in order to reduce that delay?
I think Rudraksh, the primary reason why there is a delay is because there is a tendency to grant stay once a challenge to an arbitral award is passed, an arbitral award is made under Section 34. Now, this provision specifically says that there is no automatic stay on enforcement. So what the court can possibly do, and now they've started doing that, is that the court basically asks the party to deposit the entire sum in the court or to the other party, subject to certain security being given by the other side, that if the arbitration, the challenge is decided otherwise, then that money will be refunded. So I think that is the news area that is coming up. You're absolutely right. And I know that you're a growing and budding practitioner. So this is what is happening, is that courts asked to deposit the entire arbitral sum and then seek security from the other side. So that is, I think, the future, because we cannot do away, and it's not in the court's purview to do away with the legislation itself. So they have to make good with whatever they have. I think they're doing pretty good in that area.
Some questions are from Facebook Live. What are the further recommendation of changes that can give the strength to the arbitration and its procedure? Question is from Bhavna Sharma.
Bhavna, as I just pointed out, in fact, the exact same thing which I just pointed out, that we have to strengthen the enforcement part. Like the discussion with Aniket, the first question that we took is that we have to strengthen the enforcement part, that enforcement should not be made subject to the challenge that is made under section 34 or the appeal under 37. There should be some mechanism that the arbitral award is enforced, and in a time-bound manner, section 34 and 37 is decided. The moment that starts happening, everything else will fall in place.
Okay, question is from again from Facebook Live, Kamal Sutha. My question is, how successful are alternative dispute resolution in India? How many parties opt and resort to it? The overall growth and success graph, as we can find, that we are loopholes that are still being tried to cover up.
I think, Komal, you're absolutely right. It's a general question, so I'll limit myself only to arbitration. Now, you are seeing increasingly that in financial agreements, per se, for example, vehicle finance or other types of finance, or with non-banking finance companies, you see a lot of arbitration agreements being entered. And you see, even I think Aniket would be aware about Bharti Infratel. So they would have so many arbitration agreements with their with the people that they work with. All commercial agreements are nowadays having an arbitration agreement. The primary reason is to control costs and to make it fair. I think we are moving in the right direction, as I already said. And in the coming 5 to 7 years, we would see this thing even more becoming even more efficient as it is currently.
Vishal Singh sir wanted to ask question.
Yeah, please.
Please again raise your hand, Vishal Singh. So question is from Manveer Kaur, Amity University.
Yeah.
I had read in Ratan Dheeraj Lal that we can file cases according to redressal, like in fraud, one for criminal and other for recovery of amount for arbitration. Can we file a synonymous case in, say, consumer forum? I understand we cannot file criminal complaints in arbitration.
I'm sorry, this question is pretty long. I didn't understand. So she's saying that we can file a criminal case in arbitration, obviously. But yes, there are two different, if there's a statutory remedy that is provided, arbitration is a creature of contract. Now it is between two parties in writing, if they decide, it's a creature of contract. So that is a contractual remedy that you can avail through arbitration. And if there is any deficiency in service, or if there's a defective good that has been supplied, then obviously there is a recourse to the consumer commissions as well. And now with the recent CCPA, I think it has become even more powerful. Yeah.
Vishal Vikram Singh ji, you can ask question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Vishal ji.
Sir, my question is that you said that the decision between the parties are binding and final. Sir, we available to the parties if any one of the arbitrator becomes biased to any other party. then how can the parties tackle this type of situation and problem?
ना विशाल जी, उसका बहुत सिंपल तरीका है कि सेक्शन 34 की जो एप्लीकेशन है, वी कैन फाइल अ सेक्शन 34 एप्लीकेशन जिसका टाइटल ही है एप्लीकेशन फॉर सेटिंग असाइड एन आर्बिट्रल अवार्ड, एंड इन दैट द फर्स्ट itself, the first clause itself says that if there has been any of these conditions have not been followed, तो जो bias है उसको कवर करने के लिए सेक्शन 34 दिया हुआ है. सेक्शन 34 के अंदर आपको अगर लगता है कि दोनों पार्टीज के बीच में कोई बायस हुआ या आर्बिट्रेटर किसी कारण से उसको डिसाइड नहीं कर सकता है, then you have to make that application under section 34 itself. और 34 से पहले भी अगर during arbitration if you believe that the arbitrator is not acting in the proper manner, then there is a procedure provided for termination of proceedings. आप वो terminate भी कर सकते हैं क्योंकि section 18 का mandate है the parties shall be treated equally and shall be given full opportunity to present the case, जो section 18 में दिया हुआ है. तो उसको आप एक ग्राउंड बनाकर एंड उसको चैलेंज कर सकते हैं और सेक्शन 16 की एप्लीकेशन फाइल कर सकते हैं ये कहते हुए कि इस आर्बिट्रल ट्राइब्यूनल का ज्यूरिसडिक्शन नहीं है डिसाइड करने का क्योंकि आर्बिट्रल ट्राइब्यूनल फेयर नहीं है. तो वो एक इंटरप्ले होगा, देखना पड़ेगा फैक्ट्स पे कि कहां जा रहा है.
थैंक यू सर.
थैंक यू.
Akshat Bhatnagar.
यस अक्षत.
I had asked the question. Sorry, no further questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you Akshat.
Okay. Question from Facebook Live, Garvit Agarwal. Whether multiple arbitration clause in an arbitration argument is valid in India? My question is limited to domestic arbitration proceeding.
What does he mean by multiple arbitration clauses? I mean, there can be as many arbitration clauses as possible, but उनका क्या मतलब है?
I request Garvit Agarwal.
Maybe I can answer this question later. है ना, इसको आप अलग से रख लें because multiple arbitration clauses would mean that multiple arbitrators would be appointed. That's all right, किया जा सकता है, लेकिन उसके लिए आपकी cost 5 times हो जाएगी. जी.
Okay. Question from Lokendra Singh Chauhan from NLU Delhi. Sir, legal aid is not provided in arbitration proceeding. So, what are views on this?
I think it's a very good question because legal aid बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है प्रोवाइड करना, क्योंकि देखिए लीगल एड वहां जनरली प्रोवाइड किया जाता है जहां पे पार्टीज या तो कोर्ट में आने से किसी तरह से रुक जाती हैं या कोर्ट में एक्सेस टू जस्टिस नहीं हो पाता है. बट आई थिंक आर्बिट्रेशन प्रोसीडिंग्स पर से में लीगल एड इसलिए नहीं होता क्योंकि कोर्ट लोग ये देखते हैं कि भाई ये तो प्राइवेट पार्टीज के आपस का मैटर है, तो इसमें लीगल एड का कोई योगदान नहीं है. बट दैट इज एन एब्सोल्युटली रॉन्ग स्टेटमेंट टू मेक बिकॉज इन मोस्ट केसेस आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा कि पार्टीज के बीच में पैरिटी नहीं होती है. एक्सेस टू जस्टिस, अगर आर्बिट्रेशन क्लॉज सिविल कोर्ट की एक्सेस खत्म कर रहा है तो ये जरूरी है कि जो एक्सेस मिल रही है सिविल कोर्ट को हटा के जो कि आर्बिट्रेशन है उसमें भी लीगल एड का प्रावधान होना चाहिए. आई थिंक लोकेंद्र हैज मेड अ वेरी गुड ऑब्जर्वेशन.
If anyone want to ask more question, I think Akshat again want to ask question.
Akshat, I think.
Sorry. Apologies. Look in this question brought me to my next question. A lot of standard firm contracts like banks and giant corporates have this covenant of arbitration. But is it possible if an arbitration award is passed, which is not in the favor of this corporate, the standard firm contract would be amended? Is it likely to hold?
Sorry, Akshat, you'll have to repeat the last sentence that you said. It was not proper.
So if in case the arbitral award is not in the favor of the giant in this situation and a standard firm contract needs to be amended, so would you think this will hold up, or would the corporate come back saying that we have been working on this standard firm contract with thousands of other customers or transactions? So what would be the impact on such cases?
That's a very good question. In fact, what happens is in large number of cases यही दिखाया जाता है कि साहब ये 500 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स मेरे ऑलरेडी चल रहे हैं, इनमें तो कभी ये डाउट आया ही नहीं, और आप एक लेकिन ये प्रीसिडेंट से बाउंड नहीं होता है बिकॉज आर्बिट्रेशन इज वेरी फैक्ट स्पेसिफिक. You cannot put another arbitration between the parties which are not here before the arbitrator and take a decision. So technically speaking, it is wrong, but practically speaking, between all of us professionals having a discussion, the arbitrator's mind is bound to get affected by it. There's no doubt about it. So ये bulk arbitration, standard form of arbitration की problem रहती है. Although legally speaking they would not see it, but practically speaking the arbitrator would also be, because ultimately he is a human being. वो भी ये सोचेगा कि भाई अगर 500 केसेस में प्रॉब्लम नहीं आ रही है तो इस केस में ऐसा क्या स्पेशल. तो यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट इन दैट. आई थिंक दैट रिक्वायर्स चेंज. एंड शेड्यूल 8 जो अभी इंट्रोड्यूस किया है जो बल्क कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स से बचने के लिए, वो इसीलिए इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया है जिससे कि ये बल्क कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स एक आर्बिट्रेटर के पास नहीं जाए.
So, Ashish, we are looking to this very question only. When we talk about bulk contracts, we all know how the banking industry works. They have this a huge, all the clients are being, forced to sign an arbitration agreement where they don't have a choice to do because everyone wants a loan or something. So in such cases, the parties are not aware which arbitrators, is going to be the, arbitrator and whom they will be going to attempt. In such a manner, what kind of role the government has to play in establishing a institutionalized arbitration center at different states, so that at least this problem of faced by customers of the bank on putting across them unnecessary for arbitration can be curbed. What is your take on that?
You're absolutely right. Now, what has happened is that we are moving in that direction. The 7th schedule in 2015 has really not helped. So what has happened is that इन्होंने ये कहा कि भाई अगर आप उनके लीगल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं या आपको एक डिक्लेरेशन देना पड़ता है कि कितने केस पेंडिंग है, वो 6th schedule में लिखा हुआ है. If you read the 6th schedule, it clearly says prior experience, number of ongoing arbitrations. So number of ongoing arbitrations में अगर आप देखें कि 500 arbitration एक ही व्यक्ति के पास चल रहे हैं, तो ये ग्राउंड है सेक्शन 34 का कि ये पर्सन इज बायस्ड. ठीक है. So that is something which the lawyers that are representing or the parties have to be made aware about this, that you have to ensure that schedule 6 is enforced strictly in arbitrations. और ये mandatory किया जाना चाहिए कि schedule 6 का declaration पहले ही लगना चाहिए एक arbitration agreement के साथ. पर हो रहा है, but the problem is that the parties are so unaware and the time limit is so strict that if you do not challenge it within 3 months, then there is no recourse. So I think there has to be some flexibility which can come from the government side to ensure that people who do not have the same level of education are at a level playing field. So that has to be seen. But Aniket, the problem with this is that there is a chance of an abuse of this process as well. तो बहुत सारे सवाल आज इसी पे आए कि ये इतना स्लो क्यों चल रहा है. तो स्लो चल रहा है तो कहीं ना कहीं उसको टाइट करना पड़ेगा, और जहां टाइट कर रहे हैं वहां ही दिक्कत है. You are absolutely right.
Question is from Yogendra: disadvantages of arbitration proceeding.
Acha, Yogendra ji, one of the biggest disadvantages is that in an ad hoc arbitration, you may be stuck with an arbitrator that has no knowledge about the case. तो technical knowledge हो सकता है उनकी हो ही नहीं उसमें, और वो arbitrator appoint हो जाए. ये सबसे बड़ी disadvantage है. And if that happens, then things become very, very difficult for at least the person who is suffering. Because then the other side is not able to understand. Abhi ek recent arbitration I am appearing in, I will not take the name of the parties, but they appointed some chief engineer as the arbitrator. Arbitrator साहब को ये भी नहीं पता था कि किस तरह से एविडेंस रिकॉर्ड की जाती है, और ये सब जब बातें अल्टीमेटली चैलेंज हुई, ग्राउंड्स में आई, और अभी भी चैलेंज उस पे चल रहा है. So that is the biggest disadvantage of having recourse to arbitration. क्योंकि when we are basically in court, तो कोर्ट के अंदर कम से कम जो सामने आपके प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर है वो एक लर्नेड पर्सन होता है, एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ लॉ, तो उनको पता है कि एविडेंस को कैसे अप्रिशिएट करना है. दैट इज समथिंग व्हिच इज पॉसिबली लैकिंग, बट आई थिंक द वे फॉरवर्ड इज टू गो फॉर इंस्टीट्यूशनल आर्बिट्रेशन जहां पे कि ये दिक्कतें नहीं आएंगी.
Okay, sir. I think you want to take more questions, or we sum up?
One last, we can take it. Ashish sir, if permits me, I have one last question from my side. Ashish sir, there is an, we have an MSME Act in force, okay, in India. So that controls the entire regime of MSME repayment of, repayment and interest on payments. So when we already have an arbitration clause with those MSMEs,
So they, for the purpose of if any kind of disturbance, comes into picture of this kind of a dispute, they try to route it through the MSME arbitration, which they have a separate facilitation council for. Looking into this conflict, where they have a statutory arbitration on one side and an agreemental arbitration we have on the other side, this dispute, though, is still a controversy before the Supreme High Courts of Mumbai and Delhi have different views on it. But what can be a particular remedy out of it to come for the corporates to come out of this grab of MSME, so that they cannot be forced again and again to pay for high interest rates, because the interest rate and the penal provisions over there are pretty strict.
It's very high.
Yeah.
I think the way out is basically, so the facilitation council comes into picture when the payment is not made without any reason, right? So if you do not challenge that particular invoice, if you do not challenge that particular work order, or if you do not challenge that, then that happens. So what generally we suggest to our clients is that you challenge, if you feel that this invoice has been wrongly raised by the MSME entity, or if you feel that this has been wrongly done, then you challenge it. Once there is a challenge, then that statutory facilitation council would not come into picture. So basically they deal with money disputes. MSME would not decide the facts of the case. An arbitrator has the power to do that. So if you want to get, take an insurance, so as to say, from paying very high interest and from the facilitation council, one has to challenge those things under the contract or whatever work order is issued or before the civil court. Once that challenge happens, then the MSME council has no role to play.
We are taking one last question from Facebook live from Himangni Chris Jangir. If we resort to arbitration, resort for a contract, but it is influenced by some other contract as well, which does not have any arbitration clause, can the latter contract be analyzed, questioned during the proceedings?
That's a very good question. I think it is a very fact specific question, but the arbitration agreement can be a separate agreement as well. So it is possible that you will read that other agreement as a part of the arbitration agreement. So it is possible that you have one agreement for let's say supply of vehicles, and there's another arbitration agreement which deals with purely supply of the disputes arising from that supply of vehicles. So you have to read that previous agreement into this. So but it's a very specific question, also very good question.
Okay. So want to take more questions or?
I think we leave it at that. And if any questions are there, you kindly make a note of that, send them to me. I will reply to each and every one of the questions. There's no problem.
So thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for an interactive session. It was our pleasure to have a session with you, and would like to have more sessions with you in future. Thank you so much, sir. The entire team of Law Awareness Society is thankful to you, sir.
Thank you so much.
And also thank you, Anupam Bhargav, sir, and Aniket, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad that till the end of the session, we have at least 100 people still online, which is I think, feat in itself for me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.